Welcome back to the Real Life Theology Podcast. Today's episode will help us understand the profound impact of cultural intelligence on the growth and adaptation of the Latino Christian community within diverse and evolving urban centers in the United States. I hope you enjoy this conversation as we dive into the Latino Christian Movement.
All right, thank you all so much for being here today. This is Latino Christian Movement, a workshop today. And our speaker today is Alex Diaz, and Alex is the campus pastor at Traders Point Christian Church at their Midtown campus. And Alex is going to be leading us today as we talk a little bit about cultural intelligence. And so, Alex, come on up.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. It's so good to be able to spend this time hanging out and diving into cultural intelligence. John leads the Latino Christian Movement, of which I am a part of, and we are coaching and helping churches that are Spanish-speaking and bilingual be planted all over the place. So proud of the work that you're doing, John, and grateful to be here. And like you said, my name is Alex. I have been in the U.S. for 20 years, but I'm from Venezuela originally. I was 23 when I immigrated here. Love and ministry brought me here. I met my wife during a mission trip. An American group of students came to visit with our church in Venezuela, and we fell in love. I had a strategy. It took a year for that strategy to work out. That's how much game I have. But it did work out eventually, and so we moved to the U.S. and went to Cincinnati Bible College and have been doing ministry ever since. Different states. Started here in Indianapolis, then Ohio, Florida, Arkansas, and now back here in Indianapolis. And one of the things that has been really interesting, at least about this part of the country, is how much it's changed. When I first moved to the U.S. 20 years ago, I remember here in Indianapolis, barely ever meeting anybody like me. There were people from other Latin American countries, but not a lot from at least Venezuela or Colombia, which my parents are from there. So 20 years later, I've noticed as I moved back that almost everywhere I go here in Indy, I hear Spanish and I hear the accent of where I am from. And my friend Miguel, who's here with me, we're both from. And it is everywhere. We're growing so fast as a population here. In Arkansas, I remember we lived in Little Rock, and every once in a while we would drive to Branson on vacation, and we'd have to drive through a little town called Harrison. And this is a place in northern Arkansas that has been a hotbed for KKK activity, and even till this day, if you YouTube Harrison, Arkansas, there are people that still are white supremacists, and there are big signs, billboards as you go through their one main street. And so for years we would drive through it to get to Branson, and I'd be scared and anxious of driving through until I realized that there was a Mexican restaurant right on that main street. And then there were 2 and 3 and 4, and so it's happening all over the place. And that's one of the beautiful things about what we're doing with cultural intelligence, is that it allows us to see that the changes that are happening in the country are not just small ripples, but they are big waves. There's a tsunami of changes that are happening in the U.S. And so what I want to do for the next few minutes is show you a few demographic data that can help us understand that. And then we're going to dive into what cultural intelligence is. We're going to hear an example from a pastor that has successfully adapted to his environment and his environment to him. And then I'm going to have everybody stand up for the last 30 minutes or so, and we're going to do an exercise together. So you won't fall asleep, at least during that portion, I promise. There in the year 2020, as in other years when the census has been taking place, different organizations have taken that information and have turned it into what's called a racial dot map. A racial dot map is where they take the information that people self-disclose about their ethnicity and they add color to it so that we can see it on a map. So right here you see the city of Detroit. And the legend here tells us that those who self-identified as white are in blue, those who self-identified as African Americans are in green, Hispanic, orange, Asian, red. When I moved from the south to the north, a lot of people ask me, are you happy to leave an area of the country that is so segregated? And yes, I was, and there were many great things that we experienced in the south, some difficult ones. but division is still happening all over the country, and it has very historical reasons. The great migration of people in the late 19th and early 20th century, when they were received into these cities in the north, were segregated into different areas of the city that we can still see the consequences of in these northern cities. And so Detroit, Milwaukee, these are some of the most segregated cities in the US. And as you can see, you can almost tell a full difference between these different groups of people that are clustering. Now, not every city is like this. What cities are less segregated? They tend to be coastal cities or big cities in Texas and Florida. The Texas Triangle of Dallas, San Antonio, Houston shows likely what will be almost every urban center in the US in the next 10 to 20 years. And if we were to zoom into these cities, you would see less division between all that, the different clusters that I showed you before, and a lot more integration between all of them. The reason for this, of course, is immigration. But it's an immigration that has not started in the last few decades. The immigration in these cities has been happening for hundreds of years. And so you see people here in these cities who are now third, fourth, fifth generation representatives or of the cultures that their ancestors came from. And I believe this is the future of different cities around the US, and especially in the Midwest and the South. This is a picture of the city of Indianapolis. I realize some of you are not from Indy, but I wanted to show you how in the 2010 census, you can see the different clusters of population. And so all of this, the suburbs, very white, and then this area here is a belt of minorities with African American and Hispanics combined. Now, that was the 2010 census. The problem with pictures like this is that these are images of the past. So when we look at that, our first reaction may be, well, I want to be a church, or I want to lead a church that reflects this, which is a great sentiment, except that this changes so fast that by the time that a church actually begins to reflect that, we're about 10 years behind or so. So the 2020 census shows us, these are different colors because it's a different organization that put all this together, but it shows us that this same belt of minorities is expanding almost every way, looking for opportunity. In the 2020 census, for example, there were a couple of surprises. Demographers had anticipated from the 2010 census that the Hispanic population was going to blow up. That has happened all over the country. This is just a sample of the state of Indiana, where you see the explosion of the Hispanic population. But one of the main surprises from the 2010 census is that there's even one group that grew exponentially more than the Hispanic population, which is the multicultural group. That means children from mixed race parents, second and third generation children. And so the result of that is that the Hispanic population is becoming less and less monolithic. You have a group of people who not only represent different countries, nationalities, subcultures within those nationalities, but they represent different generations. We have the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. Dr. Daniel Rodriguez out of Pepperdine even coined, you love Daniel? I'm a groupie of Dr. Rodriguez. I mean, everything that he does and writes, he talks about the 1.5 generation, which is people that in the last few years were not born here, but were educated here. And so the nuance is growing and exploding all over the US. And so the white population is in decline, so there's great attrition, but the Hispanic population is growing even more rapidly than expected. And so what does that mean for the future? How do we use this information to look at where our population is going? And so in the US, it means that most of these urban centers all over the country in the next 10 to 20 years are going to have a majority of minorities, where the prevalent group is either going to be the Hispanic group or the multiracial group. Now, sometimes when we see questions like this, or information like this, we have questions like, well, does that mean that my race is going to disappear? I believe that races don't disappear, they just adapt. Historically, we have seen this in almost every civilization from the beginning of the world, or that perhaps our culture will disappear. But the issue with culture disappearing is that culture is also malleable. It changes. And the culture of a 1.5 generation Hispanic is slightly different from one that is first generation. Same with any other population in the US, because culture is malleable and flexible, and it grows and changes. Another concern that people have sometimes is, well, we're having all this conversation about culture and generations. Does that mean that we're worshiping culture? And the way that we can think about that is that we don't worship culture, we worship Jesus, the Son of God. That's who we are worshiping. He's given us a mission. But we are finite beings, humanity, and humanity needs culture to live and communicate. Because culture is a series of behaviors and language and decisions that we all make together based on how we've been taught. And there's even going to be a culture in heaven, because it says that people from every tribe and nation and tongue are together worshiping before the Lamb. And I used to think when I was little that somehow in my church, I received an idea, and it was unintentional, but it was the idea that in heaven we would have a Latino group or a white group and an African American group, and so then worship would come in different styles from different places in the heavenly room. And so of course you would look at the Latinos and you would hear and that would be our work. And then what I see in Revelation 7:9 is that there's an amalgamation. There's going to be a unity between all of us as we create a new culture, which is the culture of heaven. And then the other thing that people sometimes bring up in this conversation is, well, we shouldn't go after affirmative action. But the truth is that churches that are multicultural, intercultural, multi-ethnic, churches that want to bless different populations and not just one, become more versatile. They have great fruit, but it is great work. Now, going back to the question of what does the future hold, this is a picture that National Geographic put together, collating all the information from the last few censuses and trying to answer the question, what are the faces of America going to look like in the next 20 years? And so this is made with technology. None of these people are real people, but this is likely how our children and grandchildren are going to look like, and each one of them represent a group of different cultures. Now, back to the present. There are 63 million Hispanics in the U.S. right now, which is about 19% of the population. Out of those, about 20% identify as evangelical Christians, which is about 13 million. There are somewhere between 35 and 40,000 Hispanic churches, and these churches include different models of doing Hispanic church. Some of them are independent churches, some of them are bilingual congregations, some of them are churches within English-speaking churches. And out of those, there is a great growth in church planting. In fact, 2/3 of the Hispanic congregations are being led by first-generation Hispanic pastors. And so church planting from most Christian denominations to reach the Hispanic people is increasing. But what is not increasing yet, at least not exponentially, is membership, which means that we're sending a lot of churches, but we're not sending them with sustainability. And we're not keeping up with attrition. And the attrition that is happening is in part based on the current situation with immigration changes, but also because some people decide on their own to move back to their own countries. And then, of course, the death rate plays a part in this. I mentioned yesterday in another meeting we had, I heard Soong-Chan Rah, a well-known author who speaks in the area of multi-ethnicity, that if you were to close all the borders right now in the U.S. and not allow anybody in, these changes would likely still happen regardless of whether we let more new people into the country or not, because of how many groups of immigrants we have already in the U.S. And now 14% of these Hispanic congregations are meeting within Anglo churches. And so this is both concerning and hopeful. It is concerning because the tipping point demographically should be about 20%. So once we get to that point, we're going to see hopefully exponential growth. But the hopeful thing is that 14% is no small number, which means that Anglo churches and Hispanic churches are wanting to partner more and trying to figure out why is what we need to talk about. So there's great opportunity. There's great opportunity for our churches to incubate Hispanic churches, either to keep them as a church within a church or to send them in church planting. There's great opportunity for partnership and sponsorship. Most first generation Hispanic pastors don't have the networks that Americans have because they didn't grow up here. They're new to the culture. So fundraising is affected by that, and we can partner with them to help the growth of Hispanic churches. Multi-ethnic vision in churches that are traditionally mono-ethnic, which means churches that are providing, for example, translation services and different ways of doing ministry without creating a church within a church. And then coaching and mentorship both ways. Because oftentimes what we do in coaching relationships, regardless of the culture, is they tend to be one directional, but there is so much nuance and so much richness in leading or helping somebody from a different culture that it actually puts us in a position where we can learn from them as well. And we can be a part of that. And so, what is the problem? I believe the problem is sustainability. I believe what I mean by that is cultural sustainability. We've heard stories of pastors that become part of churches that are mono-ethnic, that have a really hard time getting started, or perhaps have a very quick turnover rate. They last 1, 2, 3 years, and the whole time they live in tension. We've heard stories like that even in the last couple of days here in this conference. There are a few stories of success as well of pastors that have had a better time integrating into the culture of the churches that they're serving with. But could we do a better job at preparing different cultural groups to serve with one another, knowing that God has a concern for that? And so that's where cultural intelligence comes in. Cultural intelligence is an extra biblical concept that follows behaviors that have been followed around the world for decades by sociologists that you can find in the scriptures. Cultural intelligence is a person's capability to function effectively in a variety of cultural contexts, internationally and domestically. It's the capability to function effectively in any setting where there are people that are different than us. And we're going to see in a few minutes that even in this group, we probably represent just a handful of nations, but within this group, there are many subcultures that are represented because that is affected from our upbringing and our childhood and so many other contexts that can create even more and more, not only ethnic diversity, but cultural and cognitive diversity that we can leverage. Now, sometimes this happens intuitively, and that's why I wanted to ask Pastor Miguel Lara from White River Christian Church if he would share briefly his story of serving with an Anglo church so that we can hear a hopeful example from somebody who's doing it well.
Thank you, Alex. So Alex and I go way back. We met in Venezuela. I was going to an American church building where there were Spanish services led by the pastor who baptized me. And he came one day playing the guitar. I thought he was so cool. And little did we know that we were going to be doing kingdom work together eventually here in the U.S. So thank you, Alex, for asking me to do this. And born and raised in Venezuela, went to Cincinnati to do my seminary. I got my MDiv there, and then the Lord called me to serve here locally in Indianapolis. So I'm just going to share really briefly my story of how I came to Indianapolis, being in Cincinnati. As I was walking to the building, I saw the sign that said ICOM. And I met a friend as I was also walking inside the building. And we were good friends while we were doing our MDiv. She is from Iraq. She's married to a guy from Jordan. And we became good friends in Cincinnati doing the seminary, even from the very first year. And I remember him asking me to go and just help him. There was an ICOM going on in Kansas. And little did I know that I was going to help him set up that booth, and that booth was going to be placed right by the Hispanic pastor, who was the Hispanic pastor of the church I'm serving now. That connection led me to land in Noblesville, Indiana, serving at a local church called White River Christian Church. He's with the Lord now, but his name is Dan Crossley, American, but lived in Spain for 70 years, and he had definitely a heart for Hispanics. So he was wearing 3 hats when I was there, right before I came. I'm sorry. He was the therapist, the counselor. He was the missions head, and also the Hispanic pastor. Just doing 3 things amazingly. I'm hardly just doing one of them, the Hispanic ministry. But the Lord has been good to us, and we have been faithfully serving there for 8 years now. So what I want to do is just take a few minutes to share a little bit of the story of the Hispanic ministry in the local church in Noblesville, Indiana. So this is a Restoration Movement Church, founded 50 years ago. Very small campus. It grew. We're about, with all campuses accounted for, probably 2,000 congregants every week. So when I arrived to White River Christian Church, I came into a group which was called the Outreach Group. Hispanic ministry started as an outreach to Hispanics. We were all more or less similar age, parents, married, with kids, with degrees. We've all been to seminary. So right from the get-go, we were very similar in terms of where we were in life, our calling, our education. So that was amazing. And something that was very good was that the previous Hispanic pastor, being American, serving among Hispanics, had a vision. The next pastor needs to be one of them, a Hispanic. It has to be. He knew the power of that. And I was just finishing my MDiv when he called. I'm about to retire. So we're looking for the next pastor. Would you come and apply? And so I did, and the rest is history. That was the year was 2017 when I started working there. When I had the first service, it was in a chapel. It was just probably 20, 30 people. You know how this goes when a pastor transitions. Some people just leave the church. So we've been, like I tell everybody, we've been slowly growing, very slowly, but consistently. Today we average around 150, with peaks of 200. Last Easter was 230 plus online. But that was consistent growth over the years. And I just want to share with you what I think helped the relationship of the incoming pastor with the Anglo leadership. So one of them was following some values that the Anglo church had written in the walls, which were also my values. One of them was always think the best of people. You know, give the person the benefit of the doubt. Be a team player was another one. So I knew I was coming to a team. They already had what I love: processes, systems, procedures, and it's very easy to adapt when there are processes in place, when there are systems. You know, this is how it's done. This is how we do it, and you just adapt to that. It's easier instead of jumping into chaos where you need to put things in place. Everything was running, and that was very easy to adapt. Because of our similarity in age and where we were in life, there was, from the very beginning, a high respect for each other. So we all recognized that we had a calling. We've been doing ministry for a little bit or a long time, and there was high respect for each other. And one thing is that I really felt that we had each other's back. That was huge. Being part of a team that we did that, to me, was amazing. So I've always said that White River has been the best place I've worked so far in my life, by far, just because of the culture and the way we've been able to adapt to each other. So things we did to help that adaptation and process. We ate together a lot. And in those occasions, we got to know each other. talk about our families, our culture, things that excite us. So we really got to know each other just by sharing meals together and getting to know each other through conversations. So I would tell them stories about my life, about what I like. I like to be funny and tell jokes. So they started to know that part of me, and that made it just easy to relate when we shared the same sense of humor. One thing that I did was I cook a little. I like to cook, so I would just cook for them. So yes, cuisine from my country, the empanadas, tequeños, arepas, cachapas. So and take them. We're going to this food truck. So believe me, food helps. It just works. It really does. Also, they would taste my food, but I would also start learning about American way of cooking. So grilling is popular here. Smoking, to smoke a brisket, and I became interested. Sports. I didn't grow up knowing a lot about sports, but I knew that I had to become knowledgeable about sports in order to be able to relate to the culture here. So not knowing about American football and having someone mentor me and just at least understanding what it's about and having conversations. So that I knew that I had to do that very intentionally so I could have conversations and at least that they knew I was part of that conversation. So that was huge. White River has been doing very intentional things to do outreach, not only Hispanic, but in general. But in that outreach, there's a lot of people that have come to Noblesville that are from Hispanic descent. So a few things I'm going to share with you. This might be helpful for you this morning. But one is sports ministry. It's huge at White River, and a lot of kids from many Hispanic countries like to play soccer. So we offer a soccer camp during the year. Sometimes we've done it twice a year, but being there, you just get to meet the parents. It happens in a church. They start asking about services, and next thing you know, they're worshiping with us. So it's very intentional sports ministry. We've also, along the years, partnered with several other churches or ministry that tend to the felt needs. So food pantry, we have a big food pantry, but we also partner with other food pantries, health clinics, immigration clinics, organizations that even offer housing, like Family Promise in Noblesville. So we've been having that partnership along the years, and that has also helped to do outreach among Hispanics. Even the webpage, it's bilingual. It's very intentional. And some people will tell me, I just found you on the web, and I'm here. So having that online presence, that it is intentional, bilingual, is a huge thing. We do live streaming, YouTube and Facebook. Word of mouth, of course, always works. One of the things that I've found very important is doing youth ministry in the high school where we are and in the middle school. So the pastor is coming to mentor. I'm sorry, I didn't mean youth ministry. I said mentoring. I meant mentoring. Mentoring kids that are Hispanic, that are coming to the U.S. for the first time and probably have had a rough past. But having that relationship of mentorship puts you there in that community. Parents trust you, and they ask, where are you from? I'm a pastor from this church. Day in the Park, we do that every year. It's an outreach. We invite flyers, banners, online publicity. Marriage seminars is another one that we have. We had the biggest one so far this year, and we want to do another one. It brings a lot of couples, and we use Facebook ads, and we've had people just come to our marriage seminars through Facebook ads. So they ask, again, what is this church? And we've had families stay with us because of that. Very important, Bible studies. We do get together once a week for worship every Sunday, but also Bible studies we do every week. ESL, is also very important. We have done something called Friend Speak, which is teaching English using the Gospels. It's a program that is out there. Today it's called Now Let's Start Talking, lst.org. So that's an amazing resource. We started Sunday school recently, and one of the things that I think we're making a contribution to the outreach is through something that we just started. From my country, there's a music program called El Sistema. El Sistema is teaching kids orchestra instruments to keep them out of the streets. Back in my country was keeping them out of trouble, of drugs, getting into gangs. So even kids that were poor could not afford even an instrument. So that model we've started at our church, and we have right now 50 kids coming. And parents are starting to, okay, this is a church building. Who's the pastor? What is this church about? And we've had parents stay because of that. So it's an amazing way to do El Sistema. The reason we're doing that is because we hired a worship pastor who happened to be trained formally in the orchestra system and was actually doing that in Venezuela. So we're blessed to have him, and we're just taking advantage of that. Why not? Let's do this. Yeah. And the church is supporting us. Yes, this could very well be. We have a food pantry, which is very effective. 20 years ago, we have a sports ministry, but let's use music also to do outreach. So that's something that we've been doing. How has the relationship been kept over the years? I think it's just honestly through friendship. We've learned to become friends, and just that bond has been very important. It's not just co-workers or kingdom workers that you happen to be sharing the building with. We are friends, and I think that's a secret sauce that has made our bond very deep, and we trust each other. Locally, we've been doing these things, but also internationally. We, as a church, partner with no less than 10 missionary partners around the world. 3 of them are Hispanic countries: Panama, Mexico, and Guatemala. Specifically, Panama is by far our largest missionary partner, just because of the number of church plants the previous missionary partner was able to plant. And in those churches, he has put pastors. So what we've been doing is we've been very intentional in just coming in, probably building a school or a little clinic or homes, but also churches, and serving those pastors. So a lot of our support, not only local but internationally, has been developing the relationship with the pastor. What do you need? What are your spiritual needs, physical needs? How's your family? We're coming to visit you. Do know that you have a partner not only to build buildings, but to invest in you. So we did a trip 2-3 months ago, and that was one of the most beautiful experiences I've had as pastor serving other pastors internationally. It's just not go and build a building. It's just love on pastors and try to see what they're needing spiritually and as a family as well. Just effective ways to reach Hispanics. I will never forget when people come to our worship area, which is a gymnasium. They always say, we feel welcome, we feel loved. People will hug us. People will just embrace us. The old grandma will give the person a hug and a kiss. And, that connection is just, you will never forget that. And once they decide to stay, just develop the friendship and keep the friendship, and that way they will stay. So 8 years doing this, it's been a blessing. I would say, yes, it is a success story of doing effective Hispanic ministry with Anglos. We value the relationship with the Anglos in the building, with their procedures, with their processes. we just see that as a leverage. We don't need to worry about that. We just focus on ministry and people. We work well together. But there are also instances where we are dreaming and having a vision. What if you would have your own building, right? And that conversation happened this year because we're outgrowing our space. It's a set up and tear down situation. And they're already thinking, what if you had your own building, if you didn't have the need to do that? So it takes time. It takes perseverance. Be patient. It doesn't happen overnight, a successful Hispanic ministry with Anglos. But it is possible and it is beautiful. Thank you, Alex, for this opportunity.
Yeah, you can ask a question.
You got your hand up first if you want to.
Oh, well, just a quick question. So if I understand right, at White River, Miguel, it started as an outreach within an Anglo church.
Yeah.
And then has grown to now be, is it a church within a church model that perhaps will become its own
Correct.
separate congregation? So it's kind of been on this trajectory of
Yes.
complete independence.
Yes, it has. Pastor Dan Crossley, previous pastor, started the church as a very small church, probably in his basement, with families. Then, we have a few families. We're going to start using a space. The church allowed that space. And it was its own thing. It was not Hispanics gathering in the worship center with the Anglos and a headset to do translation. No, it was its own thing. He even had an independent kids ministry with his wife. His wife would run this. So it's been kept that way, which I think is very smart because a Hispanic would prefer hearing the sermon in their own language without a headset. We know that. That's a fact. And but we do take advantage of the facilities that we have, the building. Today, we don't have an independent kids ministry. We just send them to the kids ministry that we have in English. But we do send volunteers who are bilingual to help in the communication.
One quick follow-up. So do you report to the elder team at White River Christian?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So the elders at that church oversee this ministry.
Correct.
Church.
Correct. The way we've done this is it was just an Anglo church. Mm-hmm. The body, the Hispanic body, started meeting in the chapel, and as it was growing, we were giving the status of a campus. From 30, we're now 150 with peaks of 200. So we transitioned to a bigger space called the Discovery Room, where we had Discovery Bible Studies. That's why it was called that way. And then we transitioned into the gymnasium. And then, it's considered now a campus. Gotcha. We've already grown into a third campus in Arcadia. It's a coffee shop. It's a different model. So today we are 3 campus pastors. I'm one of them. And yes, the elders are over us. That is correct.
So the difference isn't geographical location. It's different cultural impact on the same campus. Or the same location.
Yeah, we Hispanic campus and we call it Noblesville. There's 2 campuses in Noblesville, English and Spanish. We are inside the building, inside the gym, and it's funny because this was designed to be an overflow of Easter, this service, and then it diminished COVID, and then we have the space. You're growing, start using it. Mm-hmm. So that's how we became, formally a campus.
I yield back the rest of my time to the town judge.
You mentioned friendship, but what are some of the other ways that White River or like the Anglo congregation in White River really made the Hispanic congregation feel part of their church family?
Yes, we've done. I love to tell them we are one church, and they know that. We have done worship nights together. We've done, during the 8 years, we've done several events that we come together. There was this one time that we're all in a park, English and Spanish. So the way we do this is we blend our bands. We have very talented Hispanic musicians as well. I have preached in the Anglo church. I ask some of the preachers come and preach with us, and we offer translation. I invite elders to preach with us. This very week, the pastor in the Anderson campus, Arcadia campus, invited me to preach there. And so, yeah, as many occasions that you can have to come together, it talks about that unity and collaboration, and it goes both ways. So they want us to be there in the worship band. They want me to preach there, and vice versa. So we've done that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
So your kids' ministry, they go together. What about like student ministry in the junior high and high school? How does that work?
Yes, that's a little bit tricky because at that age, some make the decision just for whatever reason not to be with the Anglos. I would say that some of them are just newcomers to the country, so that first phase of adaptation is difficult. So what we did was strategically we got a volunteer that had that calling and a family that would come with him and minister to the teenagers, to the students. So we've been doing that and also partnering with other churches that do this effectively. So help us, right? And we will help you. And we offer that to our teenagers. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Pastor Miguel. That was so good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Real Life Theology Podcast. If you're interested in resources or Spanish resources that renew.org has, you can check out our website. We have a few books that are in Spanish. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.